Hi, this is Mark Littleton, the minister of the Word for the Athens Church of Christ, with today's 3-minute sermon. In 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 18 and 19, the Apostle Paul writes, "All this is from God, who through Christ reconciled us to himself and gave us the ministry of reconciliation." That is, in Christ, God was reconciling the world to himself, not counting their trespasses against them, and entrusting to us the message of reconciliation. God is all about reconciliation, reconciling people to himself, reconciling people to one another. When I think of this passage, I always think of Air Force Colonel Pete Peterson. He was the first post-war ambassador to Vietnam. He was a unique choice for that position because, you see, Colonel Peterson had spent 7 years as a prisoner of war in North Vietnam. How in the world could someone who had been in prison that long return to that place without anger and return to that place on a mission of peace? Well, Pete Peterson said this. He says, "When I left that prison that day, I left my anger there." And now his mission was to go back and to build bridges of friendship between those two nations. That's exactly what God is trying to do in our lives as human beings. He wants to build bridges between us, between human beings and one another. But even more than that, he wants to build a bridge between humans and himself. And that's what Jesus did. Paul says that in Christ, God is able to reconcile sinful human beings to himself because the penalty for their sin is paid in Jesus Christ. And then Paul says the best news of all of that, when we've been reconciled by Jesus, we now have been given the message of reconciliation. We are now to share that same message of hope and that same message of reconciliation that we have enjoyed with other people. We are to be God's instruments of peace. So my challenge to you today, friend, the first one is, if you're not a follower of Christ, I hope you'll find reconciliation to God in and through and by Jesus. But if you have found that in Christ, my challenge to you today is, be an instrument of peace in your world today. Tell others about Jesus and help build bridges between people and God and people and one another. Hope you have a blessed day. Lord willing, we'll see you again tomorrow for another 3-minute sermon. God bless.